How is it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Hip Drop Podcast. Lucas and I are back to recap week 12. And week 13 is right around the corner. It's Thanksgiving week of the NFL season. We're here already. The season has flown by just like every season does. We got 3 games on Thanksgiving, 1 game on Black Friday, and the regular Sunday slate. And it's a rare season where you look at the NFL and we see one team, I'm sure we'll get to later on, that we are very confident is really good, in the Los Angeles Rams. And then a lot of uncertainty, a lot of teams that you look at and say maybe, maybe not. And then there's definitely then there's some teams, i.e. the Titans and the Raiders, you look at and say definitely not. So a lot to unpack after week 12. The Chiefs saved their season. The Bills have some issues. The Ravens continue their pretty uninspiring winning streak, in my opinion, and we'll unpack it all here. But first of all, Lucas, how you doing on this Tuesday, November 25th?
I'm doing pretty well. I mean, Chiefs play on Thanksgiving. I have not seen that since I was a kid, or at least this is the first time they play on Thanksgiving that I can remember. Like, I know they did it in 2006 against Denver, but I only care about the games I can remember. So I'm excited. But if they lose, it's going to ruin my Thanksgiving, and my family's hosting almost 36 people. So I don't want them to ruin my Thanksgiving in front of my entire extended family.
Of course. And the Chiefs, look, last year on Christmas, they did not ruin Christmas. They had probably their best performance of the season on Christmas last year, but we all know what happened in 2023. I was unfortunately in the stands for that game. Woof. That they ruined Christmas and a lot more things that night. But like I said, the Chiefs get him. It looked ugly early on, but they got a much needed win. Lucas and I will recap that in this episode. Lucas, just before we get to it, what year was that? When was the last year the Chiefs played on Thanksgiving?
I believe it was 2006 against Denver at home. Because I think, if I remember correctly, it was the very first Thursday night Thanksgiving game where they added a third game to the window. But let me check.
It was 2006. Yeah, the Chiefs that year went to the playoffs. It was Trent Green's last season. They lost to the Colts in the wild card that season. I just looked it up. It was 2006. Andy Reid was, of course, still in Philadelphia. Patrick Mahomes was just in kindergarten, probably. So, if not, maybe a little older. But anyways, to recap week 12, we will go back to the game last Thursday night, a game that's kind of in the rearview mirror, but I think was an impactful game. The Texans beat the Bills 23-19. Houston is above 500 for the first time all season to get to 6-5. Buffalo falls to 7-4. And Lucas, I'm going to start with the Texans because I'm going to praise the Texans. They deserve a lot of credit because they start the year 0-3, then they get to 2-4. And you look at, this season's cooked. They're just not good. Their offense isn't good enough. And despite the fact that CJ Stroud's been hurt, Davis Mills comes in there and they win 3 in a row. 2 of those against teams that are currently in the playoff picture, in the Jags and the Bills. And this Texans defense, I would contend, is the best defense in football. They are just so good on every level, particularly their pass rush. Will Anderson is making a case to be one of the best pass rushers in the league. If not for Myles Garrett, I think he would have the case to be the defensive player of the year. He's been unreal this season. Danielle Hunter, of course, on the other side is an animal. Danico Autry, really underrated player on the inside. And they made Josh Allen's life hell on Thursday night. They sacked him 8 times, which is the most Josh Allen has been sacked in a game. They allowed just 1 offensive touchdown, 12 offensive points for the Bills. This Texans defense really kind of bailed out their offense because Davis Mills and the offense did nothing in the second half of that football game. But this Texans defense is the biggest reason why they're 6-5 and back in relevancy in terms of making the playoffs. And now they're getting CJ Stroud back. So the Texans season, which once looked dead, is now very much alive, Lucas.
Yeah, I said it after they beat the Jaguars that if they would have lost to Jacksonville, I would have buried them. But because they won that Jaguars game in the fashion they did, they saved their season. And you're right about the Texans defense. They won this game through their pass rush. They sacked Josh Allen I think it was 9 times. It was 8 or 9 times. It was eight times. He was under pressure on 20 dropbacks, 8 sacks is a 40% pressure to sack ratio. That's insanity. And Josh Allen generally is around 10%, which means he's sacked once for every 10 dropbacks he's pressured. He was sacked at 4 times the clip, and that just shows how good the Texas pass rush is, not just at generating pressure, but actually finishing. Those are 2 different things. Full credit to them. Buffalo, I still believe in them because they have Allen, but at the same time, their overall roster, I'm not really impressed with. Their defense, the receiving core is not very good. they need to focus on running the ball. They need to focus on what they do well, and that's Josh Allen and running the ball. If they can't do that consistently, if one of those two things are off, this team has no chance to make a deep run.
Yeah, and look, I was the Bills guy in the offseason. I picked them to win the Super Bowl. Like, it's got to happen this year. It's got to happen eventually. The Chiefs can't do it again. Like, the Bills have been knocking on this doorstep for so long. And last year we were talking them up and like say yes. Like, that's like if Josh Allen can play like that, they can get it done. But this I've come to the realization that this Bills team has serious issues. They're just not that good of a football team. Now they do have Allen, but in the past, like they had Allen and they had other things. Like they never had a great receiving core, even when Diggs was there, but they had competency at the receiver position. Their offensive line this year, I feel like is not as good as it was last year. Defensively, like they've been good defensively in the past. This year, they've been bad, straight up. Particularly against the run. They cannot stop the run worth anything. And Allen, I feels like he's pressing. Like he is not playing at the level that he has been, particularly last year, even throughout his career. Like he's having an off year. And well, some of that's on him. Like he needs to bear some of the blame. He is the MVP, reigning MVP. He is the highest paid player on the team. But a lot of it's not on him. Like the blocking on Thursday was a disaster. So, Houston deserves credit for that, of course. The receivers can't separate. It's just a team that is very one player centric. And look, Cook's been fantastic this year, but the Bills go as far as Josh Allen can take him. And I just don't think this team has what it takes to make it deeper. I still think they'll make the playoffs, I think, but like I'm not as certain about that. They are currently the 7 seed. If they lose to Pittsburgh this week, they'll be out of the postseason picture. Now they do have a game against the Jets. They do have a game against the Browns. They have a game against the Bengals at home, which you'd expect them to win, even with Joe Burrow there. But it's a team that is just, I don't know. It feels like they need a change, particularly in the front office and maybe a head coach. So maybe this year isn't a bad thing, but it'll be very interesting to see how they play down the stretch because Allen at times, more so than in years past, has just looks defeated. And the Bills have had down regular season before. Remember in 2023, they were 6-6. They went on a run, but that team, you saw the signs of greatness with that team. I haven't really seen it this year. Because a staple of the Bills is they blow bad teams out. Now they're not only not blowing bad teams out, they're losing to bad teams. Like, what's their biggest win this year in terms of differential against the Jets in week 2? It's just, it doesn't feel the same. Something feels really off, but the Texans do deserve credit. That defense is incredible.
Yeah, I'm worried about Buffalo, but at the same time, they have the quarterback, and as long as they have Allen, they have a chance. But if they go up against a team with a similar caliber quarterback in the playoffs, like the Patriots or the Chiefs, I'm probably not going to pick them.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't want to be too reactionary, but like they just look tired. They just look a team that, maybe isn't quite what it used to be. All right, next game. Another team that might not be quite what it used to be, but is currently in the win column. Ravens Jets. The Ravens win again. They win their 5th straight. They are 6-5. The Jets fall to 2-9. 23-10 was the final score. This game was closer than that final score indicated. It was close in the fourth quarter. A Breece Hall fumble in the red zone really kind of did the Jets in. The Jets clinched yet another losing season. So the Ravens are now 6-5. They win 5 straight. They're tied with the Steelers atop they have the same record as the Steelers now. They're a game up in the AFC North because of in-division record. They've only played 2 division games. They've won them both. So, Lucas, the Ravens are winning, so that's a good thing. Winning the game is most important. But, like, I got to be honest, they haven't been winning in the most impressive manner. And Lamar Jackson, since returning from injury, has not been the guy that we're used to. He has been largely ineffective, not just through his arm, with his legs. Like, he is clearly compromised in his lower body, and it's really showing in this Ravens offense. Really has struggled these last 2 games. Even the Minnesota game, they did not exactly light the world on fire for most of that game. And the most concerning part is they are playing bad football teams. The Vikings are awful. Sorry to the Minnesotans. You listening to this? I mean, the Browns and the Jets speak for themselves. Like those 2 teams shouldn't be allowed in the NFL, and they're scraping by these wins. It's like, man. And the concerning part for the Ravens is their schedule does get tougher. They play the Bengals with Burrow back twice. They play the Steelers twice. Those games are always hard nosed, and they usually split with each other. They have the Patriots. They have the Packers in Lambeau. It's getting harder for the Ravens. And if Lamar's compromised, this offense is just so limited. And I don't know. Like people are acting like the Ravens are some sleeping giant. I've weirdly come away less impressed with them during this winning streak against again the Drek of the NFL.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is Lamar Jackson is like you said. I think, like you said, he's not the same guy since his injury. Oddly enough, the best game he's played this season was the first game back from the injury against the Dolphins. Like 18 to 23, 204 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was very efficient in that game, but just has not been the same. He played all right against the Vikings, not overly impressive, but like the Vikings had JJ McCarthy at quarterback. So it's not exactly. I don't know if there's a Wentz or a McCarthy game, but nonetheless, the Vikings had a terrible
It was
quarterback.
a McCarthy
Didn't
game.
need to do much. Yeah,
McCarthy was the
didn't need to
quarterback.
do
Yeah.
much. He was downright awful against the Browns. He was completely inaccurate. 60% adjusted completion percentage is rancid. And then against the Jets, he just was not impressive running the ball. Was not exactly impressive throwing the ball either. But at the same time, or not at the same time, but here's a number that really should concern Ravens fans. PFF, I know it's not synonymous with Voldemort, but a pretty objective stat they have is big time throws, which is a self-explanatory stat. Pretty much just the amount of like A to A plus throws a quarterback makes, which is pretty much a tight window throw that's has a high degree of difficulty, but it's also well executed. Like a tight window throw 50 yards down the field is a big time throw, for example. Lamar Jackson's only had 4 this year, and he's had 1 since he came back from his injury. He's had 1.9% of his throws are big time throws. Last year, he was at 6.3%. So he's cut that by more than 67%. And in the year before, when he won the MVP, he was at 4.7. So he's at a drastically low rate. He has 8 turnover-worthy plays, so he has double the turnover-worthy plays as big-time throws. His touchdown to interception ratio is really healthy at 15 to 3, but he's just not passing the eye test this year. So if he could ever get healthy, he could figure out his hamstrings. The Ravens, I think, will be good, but they're the Ravens in the playoffs. Who knows how much Lamar Jackson will play down the stretch? If Joe Burrow plays for the Bengals this week, he's going to want blood because the Bengals beat the Ravens twice last year in some controversial and heartbreaking games. So even though the Bengals are out of it, Joe Burrow's going to want to win, and the Ravens need these games. Like I know they're 6-5, but if they lose 2 games, they're probably out of the playoff race. So
Yeah.
they need Lamar Jackson to figure it out at some point. Whether that means he needs to sit a game or 2 to get fully healthy, and they rely on Tyler Huntley to beat a bad Bengals defense, so be it. But if Lamar Jackson continues to play like this, it doesn't matter if this team makes the playoffs. They're going to win exactly 0 playoff games.
Yeah, he doesn't look like the MVP quarterback, and like they're not a guarantee to get in. As the schedule does get tougher, like I don't see it with this Ravens team. I just think they are a team that is on borrowed time, similar to the Bills, even more so than the Bills, if I'm being honest. With that iteration of the team. All right, sticking in the AFC North, the Bears continue to win games. They've won 8 of their last 9 games. They beat the Steelers without Aaron Rodgers 31-28 at home. They improved to 8-3 to remain in first place in the NFC North. The Steelers fall to 6-5. And look, this is a game that the Bears had to win 100%. You cannot lose to Mason Rudolph at home. That'd be a catastrophe. I picked the Steelers because I thought Rodgers would play. He ended up not playing. Caleb Williams, I thought, was pretty up and down. He missed that play where he was strip sacked for a touchdown. He did throw 3 touchdowns. He did make some plays with his legs. The Steelers defense kind of reverted to what they were pre-Colts game, playing that weird soft zone. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Mason Rudolph, I thought, was pretty pedestrian in this one. He had 2 killer turnovers. He missed some throws down the field. It's a game that the Steelers, like, you're kicking yourselves for losing. But more so, I think the bigger story is the Bears, because they just find ways. I don't know how good of a team they are. I still like Williams, I think is definitely progressing, but he's obviously inconsistent. He's raw. But Ben Johnson deserves a lot of credit for this team being where it is because I thought they'd be better. I thought they'd be improved. I thought they were a last place team again. And here they are at 8-3, 1 win away from clinching a winning season. And they're just I don't know how real they are. I still think they're the 3rd best team in that division, but I think winning is a skill, and the Bears did not have that skill last year. They just found ways to lose game after game after game, despite, outplaying their opponents sometimes. This year's been the opposite, where like they're finding ways to win. I don't know how sustainable it is. Their schedule does get significantly tougher. But if you want to keep it up, you cannot lose to Mason Rudolph at home. and they got it done.
Yeah, I thought Caleb Williams was flat out bad in this game. I thought it was
He
like
was
one of
not
his
great,
one or
no.
two worst games of the season. He was all the box score does not do how poorly he played justice. He was bad. I know he had a 3-0 turnover interception ratio, but like I said, I believe I side rant for like 10 seconds. I believe the big time throw to turnover worthy play ratio is more indicative of how well a quarterback played than touchdown
Yeah.
to INT
He
because
had a
there's a
dropped
lot of outside
interception too.
factors.
Kyle Duggar like completely whiffed on an
Yep,
interception in that game. Yeah.
exactly. And that's not Caleb Williams should not get bailed out because Kyle Duggar doesn't know how to catch. But at the
Hmm.
same time, like I said, I think before the year, I didn't think this Bears team was that much more talented than last year. Yeah, they upgraded the offensive line. I didn't really care about some of the defensive line additions they made, like Grady Jarrett, whatever. I just thought the biggest difference was I didn't think Ben Johnson was going to blow as many games as Matt Eberflus did. And that's what's happening. They're not blowing these stupid games. Like that Bengals game, they would have lost that game with Matt Eberflus. They would have figured out a way. But Ben Johnson kept him in it, and Colston Loveland scored that clutch touchdown, not crutch touchdown, clutch touchdown. But even though the Bears are in first place, I don't really believe in them. They might make the playoffs, but I wouldn't really be scared of them. In terms of the Steelers, we kind of knew this was going to happen. I didn't really buy them at their peak when they were like 4-2 or whatever their record was. I still think they'll end up making the playoffs, but like I think they'll make the playoffs. I'm not going to say they will for sure, but at the same time, I don't know. If Aaron Rodgers' wrist doesn't get healthy, even though it's his non-throwing wrist, Mason Rudolph is not going to lead this team to the playoffs.
No, Mason Rudolph is a semi-competent backup, but that's what he is. He's just a guy. And look, Rodgers, I think resting him was probably a good idea because he was showing his age in recent games. Because beginning of the year, he looked like he had some life. And they had an early bye, and he looked kind of worn down. So I think Tomlin made the good decision to sit him. I think it would have been pretty reckless to play him in this game. But the Steelers, even with Rodgers at the point of his career that he's at, they need him if they want to win the division, get into playoffs. We'll see if he plays against Buffalo this week. All right, next game, Patriots Bengals. The Patriots continue to roll. They win their 9th in a row. They improved to 10-2. They're now the number 1 seed in the AFC. The Bengals, in their last start with Joe Flacco, they lose again, 26-20. They fall to 3-8. Look, the Bengals are cooked. They've been cooked for a while. Burrow is basically coming back to play spoiler at this point against the Ravens, against the Bills. But the Patriots did not play particularly well in this football game. I thought Drake May was pretty pedestrian. I don't think he played well at all. He threw a brutal pick six. They scored 19 offensive points. The difference was Joe Flacco, once again, back-to-back weeks, throwing a horrific interception, returned for a touchdown. And ultimately, that was the difference in this football game. Look, the Patriots are a weird team because I think they're definitely good. They deserve credit for winning 9 in a row. But I don't know. They're a team that feels like they're playing a little bit above their skis. They feel kind of similar. Now, they weren't as good in the regular season. They feel kind of similar to the Bengals in 2021, where it's a young team that was bad for a while, has this superstar second-year quarterback. And look, that Bengals team got to the Super Bowl, and this Patriots team is putting themselves in position to do that. But it was like kind of a case of like a get on the bus type game for Cincinnati. Like they played a bad team. They won. They didn't look good doing it. But I think the win is ultimately that matters. I don't have a ton to take away from this game other than New England should be able to manufacture more than 19 points against the Bengals defense.
Yeah, I think this is probably the down game for the Patriots in the second half of the year. I don't think they're going to win out, but at the same time, their schedule's a joke. Like they're 9-2 right now, and like it doesn't really. Oh no, they're 10-2. They're 10-2. I forgot they haven't had their bye yet. We'll see if they beat the Giants on Monday Night Football. I'll maybe make an interesting pick for that game, but then the benefit they have is their hardest game of the year are remaining, or they're not the hardest necessarily the hardest, but definitely the most important is the Bills game in Week 15. Out of their remaining games, it's by far the most important. That goes without saying. They're coming off a bye in that game, like given the scenario, like the fact they get the Bills at home off a bye is like I'm not going to say a guaranteed win, but they're going to be heavy favorites in that game. Like if they win that game alone, division's over. Like I think they
Oh
could.
yeah.
I think they could just lose every game except for the Bills game in Week 15, and they're going to win the division. Like they gotta win. They gotta sell out to win that game. If they want the number 1 seed, they probably gotta lose one more game at the most. But I'm looking at their schedule: Giants, Bills, Ravens, Jets, Dolphins. like 4-1 at the worst. Like,
At
or
the
no, not four,
worst,
three,
yeah.
three, three
Three
and
and
two.
three
I
and
think
two.
3-2 at the
3-2
worst.
at the worst.
Like, I
Yeah.
think if you told me they lost to the Bills and the Ravens, I'd be like, okay, I get it. But like, I don't think they should lose to the Giants. Doesn't mean they won't. Like,
No.
maybe they're due for just like maybe they're looking ahead to Buffalo. They're looking ahead to the bye week after a long winning streak. They're due to maybe have a bounce go against them. But the run defense is a problem. They're a good tackling team, but I think their defensive line's a little off. Will Campbell, I think, just got hurt, so they're going to be down. He's going to be Drake May is going to be down as down to a backup left tackle. We'll see if they can hold up. I don't think I buy them as a playoff team, but I said similar things about the Bengals a couple of years ago, and look what happened.
Look what happened, and they have similar they're on a similar path, like I mentioned. So again, it's a get on the bus type game for New England. They got it done. And for Cincinnati, look, I mean, they're just there to put up fantasy points at this point with Mr. Burrow coming back on Thanksgiving. All right, next game. Wild game here. Lions Giants. The Lions need overtime to beat the Giants at home. They win 34-27. The Giants with this loss are the first team to be officially mathematically eliminated from the postseason. Just another lost year in New York. They fall to 2-10. Look, Detroit improves to 7-4. The Lions have been kind of a shaky team as of late. Their last 4 games, they lose to JJ McCarthy at home. We'll get to JJ McCarthy later. They beat a horrific Washington team. They scored 6 points in Philadelphia. No, but they scored what, 9 points in Philadelphia? Six. They did nothing against Philadelphia. That's all I know. And then they need overtime to be a bad, entertaining but bad Giants team at home. So I think there's some concerns with the Lions. A Jameer Gibbs walk-off touchdown got the job done. I think a big story was Jameis Winston. It was a quintessential Jameis Winston game, Lucas. So much entertainment, just bombs away down the field. He caught a touchdown. Of course, he threw an interception because he had to. I mean, it's not a Jameis Winston game without an interception. Uh, Look, Jackson Dart will start once he's healthy to play, but Jameis Winston is must-see TV. Every time he's on the field, he is just so entertaining. It makes the Giants watchable at least, but obviously it's just another season down the drain. Lucas, do you have any concerns about the Lions? Because I feel like their offensive line is really regressed without Frank Ragnow, and Jared Goff behind a bad offensive line is a train wreck. Jared Goff is completely immobile. He does not deal with pressure well, which has really been the conundrum throughout his career. If they can't protect Jared Goff against good teams, which the Giants obviously aren't, and look, the Lions' schedule is brutal down the stretch. A lot of good teams, a lot of good fronts. They play the Packers on Thanksgiving. They play the Cowboys, who've improved their front with Quinn Williams. They play the Steelers. They play the Rams. They play the Bears in Chicago. The Lions, I feel like, got to get their shit together a little bit. I have concerns with Detroit. They're currently out of the playoffs as it stands now. I think it's likely they get in, but I don't think it's as big of a guarantee as others may think.
Yeah, I don't think it's that big of a guarantee either. I'm looking at their PFF grades for the entire season. I've noticed an alarming trend. Their 4 highest graded pass blocking games, they all won. Not surprising. Like, if you pass protect well, you're probably going to win no matter who you are. But like, it seems like of their, let me see, it's 4 of their 7 lowest graded pass blocking games, because their top 4 are all 73 or higher, which is pretty good. But the rest of them are 64 or below. The only games they won out of their bottom 7 pass blocking games were against the Commanders, at the Bengals, and against the Browns, where they had such a huge talent advantage that like it almost didn't matter that they couldn't protect Jared Goff, because like their defense almost won those games by themselves. But if they play a good team and they can't pass protect, like Philadelphia, the Chiefs, the Vikings, like if they get, and even the Packers, like if they don't protect and they face a qualified team, they're going to lose. That, or at least that's been the pattern. But if they can pass protect, we saw them against the Bucks. We saw them against the Ravens when Lamar Jackson was healthy. I think it's literally picking their games is just as easy as, do you think the offensive line is going to hold? If the answer is yes, they're probably going to win. If the answer is no, they're probably going to lose. And I know that's very simple analysis, but sometimes it's just simple, because the Lions have weapons. They have the running backs. Their defense, I think, is more talented than people give it credit for. But if Jared Goff is under pressure against a qualified team or against a good defense, it's going to get pretty shaky. So that Rams game, I'm getting pretty nervous for. Even that Steelers game, like if TJ Watt can get home in that game, like I know it's a home game, but at the same time, matchup styles create fights. Like that's a game where I'm not necessarily going to pick the Lions to win in a blowout, just unless Aaron Rodgers just completely melts down at Ford Field. But he generally likes playing the Lions, so that
Yeah.
might be a game where the Steelers win for almost no reason other than it's the NFL and nothing makes sense.
I mean, the Steelers winning games for no reason has been a Mike Tomlin staple. Now Mason Rudolph was too much to overcome against the Bears, but again, that'll be an interesting game for sure. I think the Lions they have some things to figure out. If they lose to the Packers on Thursday, I think some alarm bells might be going off in Detroit. All right, next game, Lucas. Speaking of the Packers beat the Vikings 23-6. They improved to 7-3-1. Minnesota falls to 4-7. Minnesota's season is effectively over at this point. They're cooked. And speaking of cooked, Lucas, JJ McCarthy, it's just not working. He can't play football. And I actually was high on JJ McCarthy in the draft. I thought he'd be good this year. I picked the Vikings to be a playoff team. And then you saw that fourth quarter against the Bears. It's like, okay, like obviously it started off rough, but there's something there. And that's as good as it got. Man, like it just he didn't throw for 100 yards. He threw two interceptions, two brutal interceptions. Micah Parsons just had his way in this football game. Just I don't know. The Vikings, I think if we weren't doing it already, it's time to put dirt on them. I think it's over. I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback this offseason. Be very interesting. Obviously, the whole deal is like, they let Sam Darnold walk out the door. They had Daniel Jones as well. They could have brought Aaron Rodgers in. Um, and now they're just kind of stuck. And now McCarthy looks like he's in concussion protocol, so it might be the Max Brosmer show, hometown kid for at least the Seattle game. It's just a rough situation, Minnesota. For the Packers, I don't have much to take away. I mean, they controlled the game. Jordan Love didn't really need to do anything. They ran the ball well, despite Josh Jacobs being out. Emmanuel Wilson had a good game. And of course, their defense played well, but the caveat there is McCarthy was once again just unplayable.
Yeah, the Viking season is over. I actually kind of like Max Brosmer coming out. He was a golfer for a year, so like I watched a lot of him, and I think he has the tools to be a quality backup because he does a lot of the like little things you want in a quarterback, but he doesn't have any elite traits. Like he doesn't have a big arm. He's not a big playmaker. But I think if the Vikings just want some sort of like predictability at quarterback, you go with him. Obviously, I think I take McCarthy long term. Just to talk about McCarthy a little, talk about JJ a little bit, or nine. Sorry, no offense, nine.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
apologize. I still believe in him long term, but now we're at the point where the Vikings have to have a true plan B next year. They cannot go into the season with JJ McCarthy and Max Brosmer unless Brosmer just completely lights up Seattle. I think they're to the point where Brosmer like has an A+ game, not an A+ game for expectations, not overall.
yeah,
You got a plan, like because we saw something similar, not to this extent, with like Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. Like I know you they invested a lot in one player, but like you got to see if maybe you have something. Because Max Brosmer, when he was signed, a lot of people thought like, oh, he's just a body. Like they have McCarthy, they had Sam Howell at the time because they didn't have Carson Wentz when they signed Max Brosmer because Wentz was signed in training camp. A lot of people were like, oh, it doesn't really matter. It's didn't really know who he was. I was banging the drum like, watch out for this kid. He's gonna make the team as at least the third quarterback. We'll see if I'm proven right. I'm not gonna say he's gonna light up the Seahawks for like 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, but I wouldn't totally be surprised if he gives the Vikings their best start to finish quarterback game of the season, and maybe they give him a shot against Washington. Then maybe that turns into a third game against Dallas, and McCarthy gets benched. But Max Brosmer went undrafted for a reason. We'll see. I still think McCarthy should be on the team next year, should be given a chance to start. But Minnesota has to do something. They have to either
yeah.
bring in a veteran that is they're comfortable starting, not Carson Wentz, or they got to maybe take a flyer on a mid round quarterback like Drew Aller or Garrett Nussmeier, someone they could pick in like the 5th round that like maybe had like first round grades or first or second round grades last year, just to like have a flyer, like just to have like another option because they can't go with JJ McCarthy and like Max Brosmer if Brosmer does not turn out to be capable.
Yeah, even like we just talked about, what about Jameis Winston? I feel like that'd be a good thing that makes sense. A guy who can be entertaining, get Jefferson his stats. I don't know. rough situation. And when we watch McCarthy, and we'll move on to the next thing quickly. The most alarming thing is he just looks like he has no confidence at this point. And once the confidence leaves the quarterback, then it's just curtains. So I don't know. It's rough. It's unfortunate the way the Vikings season has turned out after after the season they had a year ago. All right, the game we all want to talk about: Chiefs Colts. The Chiefs win 23-20 in overtime to, let's be honest, save their season. They are now 6-5. They are above 500. Once again, they actually moved down in the playoff picture. They're 10th in the AFC right now, behind Pittsburgh and Houston of the teams on the outside looking in. The Colts lose their second out of 3 games. They fall to 8-3. They're leading the AFC South, suddenly dwindling. They're 1 game ahead of Jacksonville, who they play this week. Lucas, I mean, this was the first game all season where the Chiefs showed why they're a dynasty. Because let's be honest, the theme of this season has been the Chiefs absolutely pissing all over themselves in crucial moments against Jacksonville, against Philly, certainly against Denver. And this game, they actually clutched up. They got the job done. They looked like they were dead when it was 29. Like, this is over. The Chiefs season's over. It's on to 2026. And credit to the defense. The defense won this game for Kansas City. They got 4 consecutive 3-and-outs on the Colts offense, which is the best offense of the league statistically this year. Um, and Mahomes once again, I thought played poorly for a majority of the game, but when he had to have it, when he had to get the job done, he got it done. And the Chiefs get a much, much needed win against a quality opponent at home. And for the Colts, I think some alarm bells might be going off. Daniel Jones was once again bad in the game, and their schedule coming up is brutal. Like, I am not convinced they're going to win that division. And I think we're going to be sitting here in week 18, and the Colts are be like, man, I really wish we had those first round picks, because now we're 10-7. We have Daniel Jones turned back into Daniel Jones, and we don't have a first round pick because we got Sauce Gardner. So I don't know. It'll be interesting how the Colts bounce back. I think Daniel Jones has had some concerning showings these last 3 games. But the Chiefs, let's be honest, the 2025 Chiefs are still alive, and it's thanks to Steve Spagnuolo and that defense getting stop after stop after stop, and for Mahomes finally putting a drive together and getting this team a much needed victory.
Yeah, I was out on this team like after the Kareem Hunt fumble. I
Yeah.
even if they got the first stop, after the Kareem Hunt fumble where they got the first stop, I was actually watching this game in Baltimore with my one of my good friends who's actually a Colts fan. So he was wearing a Quentin Nelson jersey next to me the entire game, but he wasn't, even when they were up 20-9, he wasn't showing up because he kind of knew, because he still like believed in the Chiefs. And I was like, the quote I kept saying is, I'm not going to get invested because you can't kill something that's already dead. And that was my hope in the team. It was like, I legit lost hope in this. I legit lost hope. It's not that I thought they were going to lose, but they were going out 20-9. Like, it maybe could have been like 27-9. Like, okay, they just got hammered. But no, they persevered and they pulled through. It was the clutchness. That was the thing, like, that we saw last year, where like they just did not play well for majority of the game. But when it came to the key moments, the Chiefs won the moments in this game for arguably the first time all season. Like, anytime there was a critical play late in the game, the Chiefs got it. It went the Chiefs' way. Like, I don't think the Colts had a single bounce go their way the entire like second half or entire fourth quarter of that game, especially after the fumble. I think this is kind of like an over my dead body game for the defense. Like, I think Mahomes clutched up because he had to, but that was more because of the defense. I think
Yeah.
honestly the defense like would have done, someone on the defense would have done something, because I think that's about as close of a game, close of a time you'll see to a defense winning a game without a turnover. Like,
Yeah.
like I know, like, usually when defenses win the game, it involves like a huge sack or a interception, a sack fumble. The defense didn't force a single takeaway in that game. But that's as close as you can get. Like 4 straight 3-and-outs, or maybe 5 straight. I forgot. 4 straight 3-and-outs is about as close as you can get to a defense taking over without like getting a defensive touchdown or a turnover. That was insane, and it kind of just, not only that, or not only did the Colts not get any points, but it got the Colts off the field fast, because a lot of those drives involved incomplete passes, because Daniel Jones had like 6 or 7. I don't even know how many consecutive incomplete passes. So that left time on the clock. So they get the Chiefs' offense more wiggle room and more margin for error. And even though they were backed up on the goal line, in that moment, I was still like weirdly confident. I was calm. Like I wasn't nervous about a potential holding penalty. I wasn't nervous about a tipped interception. I kind of had that warm feeling where I kind of just knew they were gonna win it. Like,
Yeah.
and they did. Shortly after he hit Rasheed Rice in stride, and they were off and running. And we'll see how they respond. If they come out flat
Yeah.
against Dallas, like because Mahomes has had a problem with starting very slow. Like
Oh my God. Yeah.
it was still a problem against the Colts. I think it's like 4 straight games where he was the
Oh,
worst
he
player
was
on the
bad for
offense.
3 quarters. He was bad for 3 quarters in
Like
that game.
that has to stop. Like I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like he has to have at least one game where he comes out, he goes like 5 of 5 on an opening drive. Maybe in Dallas in his hometown, he could finally come out hot. But he has a problem of something goes wrong on the first drive, whether it's he throws a couple stupid incompletions or an interception.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, I'm wrong, but I think the offense really needs to come out firing in this game because they're playing on a holiday game, but also the Cowboys have an explosive offense. Like I know the Chiefs
Yeah.
defense just played well, but they've been kind of Jekyll and Hyde this year. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas scored 30. Like I wouldn't like pick it, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I'm shocked they scored 30. Like that's
Yeah.
completely off the table. George Pickens is second in receiving yards this year. Dak Prescott is a gunslinger that can when he's on, he's about as good as any quarterback in the NFL, save for like the top 2 or 3. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I think this Chiefs team will make the playoffs. If they get in the dance, no one in the AFC wants to play them. No one.
No, I
The
agree.
Colts, I'm with you. I think they're in danger of missing the playoffs. They play the Texans twice, and
Yeah.
they play the Texans
And
next
the
week.
Jags twice, and the Seahawks and the Niners. Like that's the
Yeah,
remaining schedule.
that's tough. Like I think if they beat Houston, I think they're gonna make the playoffs, or at the very least finish ahead of Houston. But I wouldn't be surprised if Houston swept them. Like I
No.
wouldn't really be that shocked. But I think if they beat the Texans in Week 13, I think they'll pretty much be ahead of Houston, barring another collapse or Houston just winning out. But we'll see. Daniel Jones might be starting a pumpkin.
Yeah, and he's firmly on pumpkin watch. Most impressive stat for the Chiefs defense in this game. Jonathan Taylor, 16 carries, 58 yards, 3.6 yards per carry. That's perfection. I mean, that's as good as you can do. And look, I'm with you on the Chiefs. I got to see it for one more game, but it showed that they still have that will to win in them, which we had not seen really for most of the year. All right, last game of the early window. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this. Seahawks beat the Titans 30-24 in a game that was not as close as the final score. My takeaway: look, the Titans are awful. Cam Ward, I actually thought played pretty well in this game, so that's promising there. Obviously, he has no shot on with how bad that team is. And look, Sam Darnold played well against a bad opponent in a game that nobody watched. I mean, call me when the Seahawks do anything in a game of magnitude, particularly Sam Darnold as well. Look, they won. They had to. There's not a whole lot to get out of this game other than the Seahawks are good, and the Titans are the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah, not much. I thought Sam Darnold was bad in this game. Like I'm looking at his PFF chart. On deep throws, he had a passing grade of 96.9, and he went 3 of 4 for 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. Every other part of the field, medium, short, behind the line of scrimmage, he had a grade of 62.0 or worse. But between 0 and 19 yards, he had grades of 51 and 45. So if he was not throwing it deep or checking it down, he was awful in this game. But it didn't matter because Tennessee's so rancid that like
Yeah, they're terrible.
Darnold would have had the worst game of a quarterback this year, and they still would have won. 2 dropped picks. I still think Sam Darnold's on pumpkin watch. I thought he was the MVP at one point. I meant it, but he did not play well in this game. He was awful against the Rams, and he didn't do anything against the Cardinals. He went 10-12 against Arizona because they dominated, but this is 3 consecutive weeks where I'm not exactly impressed with his performance. Maybe it doesn't continue because he has the Vikings and he'll have a revenge game. Maybe he was just looking ahead, but got to be careful.
No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And look, I guess like the thing for the Titans is you got to continue to hope Cam Ward progresses. I thought he played pretty well against a good defense, so that's encouraging. But like obviously the Titans, they're just ready for the season to be over. They have 6 games left, and then they're off to Cancun. Although not officially, they're not mathematically eliminated yet, so we'll see.
But they're eligible to be eliminated this week. I think I saw
Yeah.
something. This is like the first week where teams are eligible to be eliminated. And I think 6 teams are on the chopping block. If I
Yeah,
remember
them,
correctly.
the Raiders, like there's a decent amount. All right. I think the Cardinals made one of those teams. They're a disgrace. They lose to Jacksonville 27-24 at home. Another overtime game. Jacksonville somehow improves to 7-4. The Cardinals fall to 3-8. They've won just one game since they started 2-0. Look, the Cardinals losing this game is an embarrassment. Trevor Lawrence, once again, was awful. He threw three interceptions, all clearly on him, one of them in the end zone, and the Cardinals just couldn't capitalize. Jacoby Brissett did Jacoby Brissett things, which is take a lot of sacks and check the ball down a lot. He wasn't awful. It was just a quintessential boring, uninspiring performance from Jacoby Brissett. And the Cardinals, like, look, their season's going nowhere, but them losing this type of game shows why they are who they are. I picked the Cardinals, and it's annoying from the Chiefs' perspective, where they need Jacksonville to lose because they lost the tiebreaker to them because that disgraceful loss in Week 5. And the Jaguars continue to find ways to win, even though I still don't think they're that good. I still think they have a quarterback problem. But they're overcoming it. And look, Lawrence, to his credit, clutched up at the end through the touchdown, through a go-ahead touchdown at the end of regulation, led a scoring drive in overtime. But man, like if they play like what 27 other teams, they'd probably lose that game. But they didn't, and they're firmly in the playoff hunt. And for Jacksonville, look, never underestimate the Jaguars' ability to go full Jaguars. But they have two games against the Titans, and they have a game against the Jets. So if they just take care of business, they should get to 10 wins.
Yeah, I think this Jacksonville team is going to head to the playoffs. I don't know what they'll do once they're in there, but Trevor Lawrence still is not playing well, and they have a clear winning record. Like Liam Cohen's a good coach, Anthony Campanello is a good defensive coordinator. I still don't think I think I'm very close to being out on Trevor Lawrence. He still has not had a start to finish elite game this year, even against the Chiefs, where he had like a moment. He didn't really play that well in that game. The Chiefs defense kind of blew it, but they won. And for the Cardinals, last year it kind of felt like they won a fair amount of close games. This year it's the opposite. Like they started 2-0, and
Yeah.
like I was looking smart for picking them to be the 7th seed, and then they blew that game to the Niners, and it's been downhill ever since. Then they lost one of the stupidest games every year of the year to the Titans. That was insanity. Like the fact they lost that game is like borderline fireball on Jonathan Gannon alone. But we'll see. They're going to have a new head coach next year. I doubt Kyler's back. Might be time for Arizona to go through like a mini rebuild and hire a new coach.
Yeah, like I think Gannon's out. It's been 3 years, and look, they go 4-13 their first year. They actually, you can't put that on him. That team was expected to be awful.
Yeah.
Last year, if you remember, they were 6-4. They were 6-4 and leading the
Yeah.
division, and they missed the playoffs. They went 8-9, and this year has just been an unmitigated train wreck. They're at Tampa this week. I don't anticipate they win that game. Just I don't know, Gannon. It didn't work. Um, Look, I think they're going to move on from Kyler. That thing feels over, and it's just a team that has no direction at all. And for the Jaguars, look, they're winning, but again, like I don't know how much you can trust this quarterback. I just think Lawrence is just a very average quarterback at best at this point. Um, but I mean, the win is all that matters at this point. But I don't trust them in the playoffs in the slightest. All right, next game. Browns Raiders. The Browns win 24-10. They improved to 3-8. The Raiders, I call the Titans the worst team in the NFL. I think the Raiders are giving them a run for their money. They're 2-9. They're horrific. Shador Sanders was the big story. His first start, he was okay. I mean, at best in this game, he made one really nice deep throw. He threw one touchdown. The touchdown was all the receiver. But the big story was the Browns defense once again dominated. Myles Garrett showing why he's one of the best players in the history of the sport. He is incredible, incredible player. And the Raiders are just rancid. Pete Carroll is probably going to resign. Um, Geno Smith is just he just can't play football anymore. I mean, I thought he was a good quarterback for a stretch in Seattle. It's over. It was a terrible trade. Seattle fleeced them to all hell, just like they fleeced the Broncos all those years ago. The Raiders are just rancid. The Browns are also rancid, but they're great defensively, and Shador, I guess, did enough to win. Now they're playing, better teams than the Raiders. We'll see how that goes. He's starting again this week against the Niners, so his first start at home. Both these teams are awful, but at least for the Browns, like Shador gives them at least like something to pay attention to, which Dylan Gabriel certainly did not.
I thought Shador was okay, and I understand the narrative that the talking points around him is just completely toxic. I thought he played all right, good enough to justify another start because I do believe that like the Browns did need to play both their rookies for a significant amount of time just to have a clear understanding of what they have going into the offseason. I thought Shador was all right. He had some moments, but I think the people saying he played amazing or something like that,
Oh,
they
that's
don't know what they're
ridiculous. Yeah.
they don't know what they're talking about. Like it's just insane. That not going to name names, but it was just ridiculous. But the Browns won. Myles Garrett, I think, is very close to cementing himself, if not already, of being a top 10 defensive player of all time. Like I know that might be a hot take, but he's well on. He's probably going to shatter the NFL sack record this year. Like he's
Yeah.
on like one of the greatest like month runs we've ever seen, and the fact that he's like kind of like in the ballpark of the sack record already, and it's not even Thanksgiving is insane. Full credit to him. He's a beast. Hopefully he can keep it up. I'll be rooting for him.
Yeah, TJ Watt holds the sack record he got in 2021. Um, and look, Myles Garrett again. He's like the sole reason why that Browns team has 3 wins in general. Again, like we'll see if Shador continues to give them a spark. Look, I have my doubts. Look, the Raiders are just an awful team. He didn't really need to do much, but I picked the Browns to win. And they did. So they improved my standings in the race there. All right, Lucas, I'm sure you were absolutely levitating this game. The Cowboys beat the Eagles 24-21. The Cowboys get back to the 500 mark. They improved to 5-5-1. Philadelphia loses for the first time since week 6. They fall to 8-3. The big story is the Eagles were up 21-0 and did not score a single point in the second half of this game. They blew it. They went. They just completely took their foot off the gas. Dallas comes roaring back. Dak Prescott in a huge game. George Pickens was once again dominant. The Eagles also shot themselves in the foot. Saquon Barkley had a fumble. Xavier Gibson, their returner, had a crucial fumble, which actually didn't really cost them. Dallas got no points out of it. And then Jalen Hurts, who I actually thought played decent in this game, took a pretty ill-timed sack on 3rd and 2. Dallas got the ball back. They kicked the game winner. A big win for Dallas. They win 2 in a row in the aftermath of the tragic loss of Marshawn Kneeland. Brian Schottenheimer's done a really good job keeping that team together this year. And look, I mean, the trades look like they paid off. Dallas's defense has improved the last 2 weeks with the addition of Quinnen Williams and Logan Wilson. They also got some guys back from injury like Overshone and Siobhan Ravel, who Lucas loved in the draft process. But Lucas, with all due respect to the Cowboys, this is more about the Eagles. Like they just completely shit their pants. And look, I switched my pick to the Cowboys, but you're the Eagles hater here. You were proven right. What went wrong in this game? What the hell happened to Philadelphia?
I think maybe the magic carpet ride is over. Like, and I know I've been kind of like it's been kind of a meme at this point where I'm picking against the Eagles every week, but I
Mhm.
really did think Dallas was going to win this game. I just felt like they had momentum. They played great on Monday Night Football against the Raiders. This is a home game. I thought they played the Eagles pretty well in week 1 on that opener. I think
Mhm.
they flat out should have won that game, except CD Lamb, I guess, had stone hands in that game. I guess he literally had butter on his gloves instead of stickum. But I but he did drop those balls. But I think for the Eagles, we got to see how they respond against Chicago on a short week. Like, I don't know if they can win that game. If they lose that game, like Philadelphia is just one of those teams where like momentum starts to pick up in positively or negatively. Like last year, the momentum picked up in a very, very positive way. And we know what happened at the end of last season. But 2023, the negative momentum eventually picked up, and we know what happened at the end of that season. So we'll see. I was in a bar in Baltimore watching that game with a bunch of Eagles fans for some reason. I don't know why they were in that bar, but it is what it is. But I was cheering basically as loud as any Cowboy fan in there because I'm an Eagles hater. I'll forever hate the Eagles even before last year's Super Bowl. So we'll see. I got to see more than one game before I'm officially gonna like start like actually being serious
Yeah.
about the Eagles collapsing. If they lose to the Bears, like unless it's like a very close game, it's like a shootout, like 38-35, like fair enough. But if they lose like a game like they did against Dallas, like where their offense just looks dreadful for a significant period of time, might be time to start having some tough conversations. And we'll be talking about another team very shortly that it's I think we very clearly have a favorite in the NFC, and that team is not the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, and look, I picked the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl in my preseason. I still think they're a team that can get to the NFC Championship game. The reason why I'm not ready to say like this is a repeat of 2023 is they are better defensively this year. They were rancid on defense that season. And I do think this roster is more talented. I think this is just a case of Dallas wanted it more. I think Philadelphia went 21 nothing and just said, "Oh, this game's over." I do think Kevin Patullo is a legitimate issue with this team. His play calling has been a problem all year. They've overcome it more often than not, and they weren't able to in this game. It'll be really interesting to see how they look against Chicago because they're back home. Like if they go 3-and-out to start the game, the first couple drives, like you're gonna hear it from those fans. And it's a Bears team that's playing with a lot of confidence. Look, the Bears haven't really beaten anybody impressive. The Bears have beaten one team with a winning record this year, and that was the Steelers without Rodgers. Like, so it's a game Philadelphia should win, but if they lose, that's when you start to look at and say, like maybe this thing's going in the wrong direction. I'm not there yet, but that's a bad loss for Philly. In a kind of a win for Dallas that keeps hope alive for them. That they can maybe make a run to the playoffs, even though their schedule upcoming not easy. I mean, they have the Chiefs, they have the Lions, but their back half is gets a little manageable. They have the Vikings, they have the Commanders, they have the Chargers, they have the Giants. So the Cowboys are in a decent position, and that win put them in that spot. And it looks like their trades. Hey, we killed Jerry for it, but they're paying off so far. All right, last game of the day slate. We don't need to spend any time on this. The Falcons beat the Saints 24-10. They improved to 4-7. Saints fall to 2-9. Neither of these teams are going anywhere. We can move on, right, Lucas?
I thought Kirk Cousins played very well in this game. He had a fumble that
Yeah,
was pretty bad. Interception wasn't his fault. Saints, they're even though they were a little impressive for a stretch, they're
they're
still a
bad.
bottom five team. And this game does not change my opinion of Raheem Morris or Kirk Cousins, even though Kirk
Yeah,
Cousins
I
did
mean,
play well.
yeah, Cousins played well against the Saints, but he's kind of a cooked goose at this point. Raheem Morris should be fired at the end of the year. Um, And as for the Saints, like, look, Tyler Shuck was not great in this game. I don't know what to think of Kellen Moore. He's going to get a mulligan because it's his first year. But again, like they're miles away from competing for anything. All right, Sunday Night Football, a bloodbath. The Rams clobber the Buccaneers 34-7. They improved to 9-2. The Bucks kind of falling off the map a little bit. They fall to 6-5. They were 5-1, so they've won just one game since week 6. They're still atop the NFC South. They'll still probably win that division, given what we saw from the Panthers last night. A big story: Baker Mayfield got hurt. He did not play in the second half. He hurt his shoulder. We don't know how long term it is. He was not playing well before the injury. Baker Mayfield quietly has not played well really for the last month. He has struggled ever since getting off to that MVP caliber start. But I think an even bigger story is Lucas. I think there's a clear team that's the best team in the NFL, and that's the Rams. The Rams are in a class of their own at this point. I think if you're tiering the teams in the NFL, the Rams should be by themselves at number one. Matthew Stafford, I think, is clearly the MVP. I think it would take a monumental collapse from Stafford for him not to win an MVP, not to win at this point. He has been basically perfect this year. He has been absolutely incredible. He was once again great in this game. He didn't really do anything in the second half because he didn't have to. He threw 3 touchdowns, 2 to Devontae Adams. Um, they're just a juggernaut, man. Their coaching staff is incredible. Their defense has really come on. Their defensive front's really good. This is a team that looks ready to win the Super Bowl. I think this team is better than the team that won it all back in 2021. They, to me, are the clear best team in the league at this point.
Yeah, I say this with complete sincerity. This might be one of the strongest teams we've seen in years. Like,
Yeah.
I just they're performing at a level that's insane. Like, I understand like they might not be the most talented team, but like right now, and this is I'm just using it as a frame of reference. Like, and their PFF team grade for the entire season is 94.8. This early in the season, that's insane because if you don't know how PFF works, it's not an average like passer rating or QBR. The more quality games you compile, the higher the grade goes. So their grade might be 94.8 now, but if their next game is at like an 83, that'll go up to a 95. Like, so it rewards consistency. Like, the only team that's like higher in the past 5 years was the 2023 Niners, only in the regular season, not for the entire season. The Niners were at 95.2, and the Dolphins that year were at 94.4. Like, and that was with a 17-game sample size. The Rams are at 11 games, so they have 6 more games to compile positive grades. And I don't mean the grades are everything, but like that just shows like how consistent this team has been. Like they haven't had a single like bad game this year. Like their lowest graded game of the year was 74, and that was against the Eagles. And if you don't know where those grades come from, it's pretty much just grading the entire team and all the players.
Yeah,
It's not grading
yeah,
the team as a whole. It's not grading like, hey, here's their efficiency on first down. It's like here's every single player that played a snap. Here's the cumulative grade. Their lowest graded game was the Eagles, and they lost that game on the very last second. And their grade got tanked in that game because of special teams. Like, and what I mean by that is they've been consistent. Like they've been super consistent. Even the game they lost against the Niners on that Thursday game, they didn't play bad in that game. It's just that the Niners were a little bit more clutch, and the Niners won the moments. But they got their revenge against the 49ers by just absolutely hammering them. Matthew Stafford's the MVP. I don't think
yeah,
that's close. Like, and this team is really reminding me of 2021, where Matthew Stafford just firing on all cylinders. They're having a great season by Puka Nacua. If he could stay healthy, Devontae Adams has been a great number 2. Just to do a little rant, that 2021 Rams team is pretty underrated in history. I know they were a 4 seed. I don't give a shit they were a 4 seed.
yeah,
They were the highest graded team in the regular season by PFF. The only reason they were a 4 seed is because they were 12-5, and the Packers and Bucks both happened to go 13-4, and they lost the tiebreaker to the 12-5 Cowboys. Like that
yeah.
was not that's about as good as a 4 seed you're ever going to see in the history of the NFL. Like the fact that they were at 4 seed is kind of like an injustice. Like that team was probably a 2 seed 99% of years. That this team I think is better than that one. And like
I
that's the
agree.
team that
Yeah,
had Von Miller, that had Cooper Kupp playing at an MVP level. The main difference is
obviously Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald, of course, just
yeah, but
wrecking
it's not even
shop.
Aaron Donald, but the offensive line for the Rams this year is an actual problem. Like it's been a lot better in the past like month or two. Like they found like a formula that's good, but I still don't believe in their O line. But to be honest, their pass protection is literally the only flaw on the team. Like that's it. Like I can't think of what part of the Rams do you look at and be like, not very good. That could be a problem. It's their pass protection. That's it. The running game is excellent. Their passing game is, of course, it's excellent. Their pass rush is amazing. Their secondary is playing out of its mind right now. Their run defense is actually pretty good. Like this team doesn't have a flaw. If they could protect, I don't know who's going to beat this team. Like I don't even think the Chiefs can beat them.
No,
Like
I
I think this
agree.
team right now, I think is playing better than the Eagles last year. And the Eagles were a
Oh,
runaway freight train.
the
The Eagles
Eagles
were
last
so
year.
dominant. Yeah.
The Eagles last year. Wow. Okay, that's.
Like I think
I
the main
think.
difference is the Eagles were so dominant on both sides of the trenches that it was easier for them to blow out teams. But I think
Yeah.
I think the Eagles might be more talented, but I think this Rams team is functioning on such a high level. Last year's Eagles team had like such a complete roster that like if Nick Sirianni fired up the troops, like they just their horses were just so talented, it almost didn't matter. This Rams team, I think, is playing about as efficiently good as they possibly can. Like I think this team is playing at a great combination of at their ceiling and is also sustainable. The Colts, we didn't know if that was sustainable. This Rams team is playing about as good as they can, but I also think it's sustainable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and one more before we get to last night's shit fest. Do you think Matthew Stafford this season is solidifying himself as a Hall of Famer? Because I think he is.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
if he ends the regular season, as long as he doesn't finish the last 5 games of the season like totally disastrous, we're like, oh, it's a shit show. I think if he at least plays very well for the last 5 or 6 games of the year, I think he's a Hall of Famer. Because
Yeah.
I have a general rule of thumb that if quarterbacks can get to a combination of 2 MVPs, regular season MVPs, or Super Bowl wins as a starter, where like you like played the entire playoff run, you're a Hall of Famer. Like no matter
Yeah.
what. Like, Mahomes, the second he won the Super Bowl, his first Super Bowl, he was a Hall of Famer. May not have been first ballot because he had the MVP, he had the Super Bowl. Because at that point, like that's the quarterback accomplished both like areas you need to win, you need to dominate to have a Hall of Fame career, regular season success and playoff success. Like I say to this day, if Matt Ryan or Cam Newton won those Super Bowls, they would both be Hall of Famers in my book. Now both
Yeah.
of them are borderline Hall of Famers, but I think if Stafford wins the MVP, it's over. Like he's a Hall of Famer. There's no denying it. If he wins the Super Bowl but not the MVP, he's a Hall of Famer. I even think if he gets to the Super Bowl, even if he has a bad finish to the season, if he just gets to the Super Bowl, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Because
No.
you would have a top 5 MVP year, a Super Bowl win, and then another Super Bowl run. That's a Hall of Fame career with all the volume stats he compiled to Detroit.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And he's had an absolutely fantastic run with this Rams team. All right, game last night, Niners Panthers. The Niners win 20-9, despite Brock Purdy playing absolutely awful, particularly in the first half of the game. Purdy was really bad last night. Bryce Young might have been worse. Bryce Young, like, look, we praised him last week. He deserved praise for his performance against Atlanta. Lucas, like the Panthers cannot roll with Bryce Young next year. It's over. He's just not good. I mean, it's just the reality of the situation. He'll have a good game every now and again. But he's just not good enough. Like I'm not saying he's not an NFL player. But I don't know if he's a starter. I think he's a low end starter, high end backup. And the Panthers, they're as a team, clearly they're progressing. They're a team that's made a lot of strides. I think Dave Canales, I don't think he's a great coach, but I definitely think he's breathed some life into the franchise. But Bryce Young, I think, is really, really holding that team back. And it really showed last night. Like the Panthers probably should have won that game. That Brock Purdy was absolutely horrific, and he was still the better quarterback in the game, in my opinion, just because the Panther Bryce Young just couldn't do anything. As for the Niners, like they're 8-4. I don't view them as a contender. I think if they had Warner and Bosa and all their guys, I think that you could see them as a threat. I just don't think they have enough horses to be a real threat in the playoffs. But I do think they'll get in. I think Kyle Shanahan's done a really good job this year. Obviously, Robert Saleh is a excellent, excellent defensive coordinator. And look, Purdy is going to play better than that, you'd think. He just had a really bad night. Although Purdy this year really has not played well in his starts. That's a little concerning. Um, I wouldn't bench him yet for Mac Jones. I do think if this trend continues, you might have to have that conversation. But I think the big story is Bryce Young. He's not in. He's just not the answer in Carolina, and they should be in the quarterback market this offseason.
Yeah, I just want to. Sorry, I was thinking about what I wanted to say. Yeah, I've been saying it for the past couple weeks. I don't care that Bryce Young has been playing well for a game or two. The Panthers, kind of like the Vikings, they need to go into next year with a true plan B. Like again, it could be a veteran like Jameis Winston, could be another veteran that becomes available, could be a mid-round quarterback like Garrett Nussmeier or Drew Aller,
Mm-hmm.
just another swing, just another backup to give them hope. Not Andy Dalton, not Russell Wilson. Has to be somebody
No,
like
God, no.
that,
Jesus.
like you could sell to your fan base. Because I don't think Bryce Young is it. He's undersized and he's just not very talented. Like that's the thing. He's
Yeah.
undersized and he's not very talented. Like what does he do? Like well, he's not the most mobile guy. We of course know he's undersized. He doesn't have the greatest arm. His accuracy can be pretty good at
He has
times.
pretty good pocket presence. He is good
Sure,
pocket presence. That's the only thing
sure.
he does well. Like
Like
he's
but having good pocket presence doesn't make you a superstar.
no,
It
God,
makes
no. Yeah.
no, but it does make you like it is a positive. But if you have good pocket presence, but you don't have a good arm, or you're not mobile, or you're not big, like what good is it? Like Tom Brady, I know he wasn't the most talented guy. His talent gets underrated. He was big. He had a great arm. Like I think people think like Brady had like this noodle arm or it wasn't that good. No, like it was. He just didn't have like the top end S tier arm that like Mahomes, Rodgers, Brett Favre had. But he was in that next tier. Like Brady could
Oh
throw it
yeah.
like Brady had a very strong arm and he had accuracy to all levels and he could throw on the run. Bryce Young doesn't have that. The only asset he has is his accuracy and then maybe his pocket presence. But in the NFL, where like everyone is super talented, like he doesn't have something physically he could fall back on. If like because like if his confidence is gone, what does he have going for him? At least someone like Allen or Lamar, they have their mobility. Like if they just don't trust their arm that day, you have faith that maybe they could rush for 100 yards. Maybe they can't do it every game, but like they have that capability. Bryce Young doesn't have that. But at the same, I mean, I said my piece. Like Panthers, Bryce Young's not the guy. They need to go in the next year with somebody. I am a believer teams need to be patient. Like we're learning this lesson with a lot of veterans. Like don't give up on these young guys. but they need to have a backup plan. They need to have another
Yeah.
quarterback that's ready to go. Like
Yeah.
they can't go in with Bryce Young or nobody. In terms of Brock Purdy, he has not played well this year, but like he's dealt with injuries for the entire year, so I'm not gonna like bury him yet. But if he has another few games like he did against Carolina, against better teams, it's not gonna go as well. I still think San Francisco will make the playoffs, but given how they're so beat up on defense, this team's not going to do anything unless Brock Purdy goes God mode, and I don't think he's capable of that.
No, and look, Purdy in Cleveland against that defense, like that's a little concerning. Because the Panthers' defense has obviously improved, but Carolina is not a great defensive team, and he really struggled. Look, coaching has really carried the Niners this year with Shanahan and Saleh. I don't know how far it can get in the postseason. Maybe they steal a game if they get the 5 seed and play Tampa in the first round. But I'd be very surprised if this team gets past the divisional round, even if they get there. But look, they're playing well. They've overcome injuries. They deserve a lot of credit, and they are firmly in the playoff race. All right, Lucas, that wraps up our Week 12 recap. We will be back tomorrow to look ahead to Week 13, Thanksgiving week in the NFL. Obviously, the trifecta of games on Thanksgiving and the ensuing games. Lucas, do you have any parting thoughts before we disperse?
I do not, and I will. I look forward to hopefully catching up on picks this week. So let's hope
Yeah,
my
we'll
luck
see.
turns around.
Yeah, we'll see. Of course, Lucas and I will give our predictions for Week 13. But for now, that's it. That's our Week 12 recap, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.